Pretty Girl Club, welcome back to the Exotical Storytime series. This series is the most important series on this channel because at this point we've got tens of thousands of women who all can relate to the experiences of exoticals. If you don't know what an exotical is, what that means is someone who does not represent the phenotype of an unambiguous mono dark-skinned black woman with the 4C hair and the broad features. So any other kind of black woman, whether you're a monoracial kind of lighter skinned black woman, maybe you're a monoracial dark skinned black woman who is accused of benefiting from texturism or featureism, all of us, tens of thousands of us actually, have all realized that we have both the black experience as well as the quote unquote privileged experience. And so I believe that we deserve a safe space as well. I support unambiguous black women having their own spaces to talk about their stories, but we're going to talk about this story here. By the way, if you want to tell your exotical story time, be sure to email exoticalsunited@gmail.com. This girl says, "Firstly, I just want to say how much I love your channel. Your channel has helped me love myself and understand myself even more. I've never related to something as much as I relate to your channel. Thank you for being amazing, and I wish you all the best. I'm not comfortable sending a pic, but here's a brief description of myself. I am brown-skinned, mixed. My father is Afro-Caribbean, and my mother is Indo-Caribbean. I have black 3B hair that reaches down to my mid-back, brown upturned eyes, a wide nose, similar to Rihanna's, full lips, thick eyebrows, and long lashes. When I have my natural hair out, people can sometimes tell that I'm mixed with Indian, or they will assume I'm Dominican, Brazilian, etc. But when my hair is straight, people always assume I'm Indian. I hope that gives you a better picture." So I'm kind of thinking of like Tatiana Ali. I believe Tatiana Ali also has some sort of Caribbean or West Indian background. She says, "I'm going to give a description of my body because it's relevant to some stories. My body is similar to Ruby Rose's, except I have a large chest. That's the best I can describe myself. I truly hope it helps. For the first couple of years of my life, I lived in a very multicultural area. It wasn't until I turned 12 and moved to a city that was majority African Americans that I experienced bullying and hate." And this is exactly why we talk about the black community on this channel, because unfortunately I do feel like a lot of the ism conversation and a lot of the vitriol that we have experienced has been within our own black communities. And that's because as exoticals, we have both the black experience as well as the quote-unquote privileged black experience. So even if you don't view yourself as privileged, even if you don't view yourself as better than or anything, sometimes I feel like other people project that onto you. And so that's what causes all of us to have this common experience of being othered or being perceived as like, oh, she thinks she's all that, she thinks she's better. But she says, all throughout middle and high school, I never had genuine friends. Every time I tried to talk to the girls, unambiguous black women, they'd either ignore me, laugh at me, or make disgusted faces. The only attention I received was from the boys. I hated this attention. They'd touch me inappropriately without my permission, and when I'd tell them to stop, they would tell me I'm being weird. Many of these guys only ever wanted to experience me. So once again, she's going through the fetishization that a lot of us also go through as well. Unfortunately, I do think that a lot of us have been assaulted or like touched the wrong way. And I do think part of it could come from people kind of sexualizing you from a young age, and also because of the nature of a lot of men. She says, "I remember hearing some of them brag to their friends about me, and they'd refer to me as an Indian bitch, a Caribbean bitch, that exotic looking hoe. That made me feel so worthless. I remember this one guy telling me how he wanted to have kids with me so that his kid would have good hair. I had no idea what that meant at the time." Yes, have any of you guys ever experienced men wanting to have children with you? I know I've experienced that before, where a lot of guys, they will desperately want to have children. And part of it is because they want their children to have your features, or they want their kids to look like you, or they want to be able to flex to their friends and family. "Oh yeah, that's my baby mama. Oh yeah, that pretty girl over there with those features. Oh, she's the mother of my child." So I've definitely noticed this fetishization that happens sometimes too, to where it's almost like people want to impregnate you, not only to humble you, but also as a form of social status. Because a lot of men, unfortunately, do view having multiple baby mamas as a symbol of status and desirability. So I feel like if you are considered the pretty girl, a lot of men will go out of their way to try to impregnate you, especially if you don't have any other kids by other men. Oh yeah. She says, At the same time, people were spreading rumors about me and saying things like I'm a slut, whore, thought, etc., that I had STDs and AIDS, got plastic surgery, and more. Yes, I've also noticed, I call it the pretty girl whore stereotype. Like, whenever you are viewed as desirable or pretty, people automatically assume that you're a hoe or they assume that you're promiscuous. I've seen this happen in the other story times where some of these girls, like as they get to their teenage years or as soon as they hit puberty, their own family members assume that they're being promiscuous even if they're not. And the reason they're assuming that is because they are actually sexualizing you, or they see your desirability. They see the fact that you are sexually desirable in the eyes of men, and because they're male-centered, they automatically assume, oh, you must be a hoe. You must be sleeping with everybody. You had to have slept your way to the top. You're probably sleeping with these guys. You're sleeping with my boyfriend. I've noticed that's another common thing that we all have gone through. People falsely accusing us of sleeping with their boyfriends or husbands or flirting when we're not trying to. But she says, I received honors awards because I love to study and get good grades, but people would say I only got it because I slept with the teachers for it. I couldn't take everything being said about me, so I ended up switching to homeschooling. Best decision ever. But even after I left school, I had weird encounters. I've always known and thought that I was pretty, but I'd never admit it, because when I did, people would call me stuck up, narcissistic, trying to make others feel insecure, and more. Yeah, I've even noticed that on this YouTube channel. People get mad that I call us the Pretty Girl Club because if you think you're pretty, it means that you must think that they are ugly. So I've noticed that a lot of women who don't see their own beauty, they get very upset when they see you loving yourself out loud or celebrating your beauty or making a positive feminine nickname for yourself, like the Pretty Girl Club or something. And I've noticed that for a lot of Exoticals, we've had to stay silent about our experiences because people will tell us up and down, you need to acknowledge your privilege. But then when you acknowledge having pretty privilege, oh, then suddenly, bitch, you're ugly, you're mediocre, you're average at best, you don't have pretty privilege. You're male-centered. Have you ever noticed how the pretty privilege conversation and being pretty was never considered male-centered until the Exoticals started actually coming out and telling our stories and talking about being perceived as quote-unquote pretty? Now, all of a sudden, nobody wants to talk about colorism anymore. Nobody wants to talk about the pretty privilege conversation anymore because you've got thousands of women here who have actually experienced these things, and we have the authority to speak on this stuff because we've had it happen to us. She says, I had this one friend, unambiguous black woman who was on the heavier side, who I believe was jealous of me. Every time someone would compliment me on anything, hair, body, face, etc., she'd always downplay me. So for example, when people would tell me that I'm pretty, she'd say, it's because of all that makeup she has on. And whenever it was a guy complimenting me, she'd go crazy and start telling them embarrassing things about me that she promised to never tell anyone. Yep, I've noticed this humbling tactic where there's no way that you could possibly be mixed race, darker skinned, and be pretty. I've noticed that if you break too many stereotypes, people get mad. And I've also noticed that whenever you have pretty privilege, people love to call out something about you that's fake because they're hoping that it will take away your pretty privilege. They're hoping that it will take away your pedestal. Because have you ever noticed that if you find a person to be quote unquote ugly or disgusting or gross, you don't call out if she has on fake eyelashes. If it's somebody that you feel sorry for, that you pity, that you feel is super duper ugly, then you don't call out, oh, she has on makeup, she has on lashes. No, you only call it out when the person is pretty or when you perceive them as pretty, I noticed. And especially if they're receiving compliments from men and stuff like that. Because has anyone noticed that a lot of the pretty privilege conversation, the colorism, texturism, and featureism conversation is very rooted in the male gaze? Because whenever you look at the videos, even if you look at YouTube videos here, look at what they talk about when they talk about their experiences with colorism. Usually when they talk about their experiences with all the different isms and stuff, usually they will say, oh, either my black family members made fun of that feature or made fun of my hair texture, so that's number one. So once again, the blame would still be on the black community. Or number two, I didn't get asked to prom. My friend got more likes than me. She got more compliments than me. So the male gaze. Literally, it's black families and the male gaze almost every single time that is involved with women who have insecurities about these different isms. She says, if I got compliments on my body, she'd tell people that I have an eating disorder and got plastic surgery. None of it was true. And when people would compliment my hair, she'd always lie and say it's a wig or it's unhealthy and heat damage. Oh my gosh, I've got that before as well. I think she said she has a 3B hair texture. That's like my hair texture. It's some sort of kind of towards the middle of type 3. So yeah, I've had people say that as well, like because your curls are looser, and especially if you have a bit of a silkier texture, people automatically want to say it's heat damage. They're like, oh, your hair must be damaged. It must be heat damage because curls aren't supposed to be that loose. And it's like, well, no, not everybody fits your internalized stereotype of blackness or mixed race blackness or what skin tone you have that goes with a certain hair texture. Do you guys remember in the Ekane video when somebody said Ekane is not light skinned because she doesn't have the phenotype of a light skin? First of all, what the fuck is a phenotype of a light skin? Because last time I checked, a light skinned person could have different eye colors, different hair textures, and I feel like people do that as well if you have a looser hair texture. Let's say you have kind of like a 3B or some sort of type 2 hair texture. People associate those hair textures with maybe like a white passing skin tone or maybe with keener features. So let's say you kind of break some stereotypes, then suddenly, oh, your hair must be unhealthy and heat damaged. She says, I've had some other weird experiences that have always stuck with me, like people assuming that I make my money by selling my body, thinking that I'm mean or stuck up, selfish, stupid, a cheater, toxic, and more. That's all I can think for now, but other than that, again, thank you for creating your channel. You're helping me so much more than you can imagine. Please never stop. Yep, I'm not surprised at all, especially people assuming that she's selling her body. Do you guys remember on one of the comment foolery episodes where they were talking about Exoticals and some random guy commented, he was like, oh yeah, they've got sex workers over there. And it's like, wait a minute, how would you know that anybody is a sex worker unless you're soliciting sex workers or unless you are specifically looking for that, or maybe you're assuming that's what people are doing? But what do you ladies think? Have any of these things happened to you? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.